till you get it right. If you don't get it right, you start over again, and you keep on going as long as you have to. That's the way it is. That's what you do.
I'm sorry. I can't take this man seriously in this movie.
It's perfectly normal.
Ugly Bones is Jackson's 10th film, coming off the backbones of the big ape himself, King Kong. The movie is based off the novel written by Alice Sebold back in 2002. If you're unaware of the story, it's about a 14-year-old girl who gets raped and murdered, who ends up in a place between heaven and earth. I'll be referring to this as purgatory. While in purgatory, Susie will watch her family deal with her death and the killer living peacefully, waiting to see him make his next move. The film stars the lovely ladybird herself, Saoirse Ronan. I hope I got that right. And her co-stars are Stanley Tucci, Rachel Weisz, and the man himself, Marky Mark.
What? No.
Yeah, maybe not the best choice. I was 14 when this movie came out, and after seeing King Kong a few years back, I was really excited to see what Peter Jackson was gonna do next.
Not supposed to do that. What? Who are you? She saw you. That girl. I think my hand touched hers.
It's fair to say that I was really bored watching the movie, so I just finished watching the movie almost 10 years later for a second time, and have my thoughts changed? Not really, which is sad, but let the review commence. Our story opens up with an over-the-top dramatic narration where we are introduced to our soon-to-be-dead little girl, Susie. She gives a decent performance, but apparently to Jackson, her audition tape was so good he didn't ask to meet her or take any other auditions and was hired right away. She has had a great career since, so I think Jackson was onto something. As well, we are introduced to all the people who will be affected after her death, even George Harvey, who we see at the mall more than once. We get it, you made Lord of the Rings, but what happened here? Oh shit, it's time for a Peter Jackson cameo. Oh yeah, and Susan Sarandon is in this. She only shows up when it's convenient though. Now, as I just stated, I really don't care for this movie. I think it's too long, boring, and clunky, but the first 30 minutes of the film is really good. Which, I'll mind you, if the movie you are watching is about a girl getting murdered and that murder happens before the 30-minute mark, you're gonna be let down. The best scene is the interaction with our lead killer and the victim leading up to the murder. How did Douchey go from this?
Oh? I knew it, see? I knew you weren't like those other girls. I knew that.
Mr. Harvey.
Mm-hmm.
To this.
Oh my God!
Shame on you, Douchey. Shame on you. This scene, though, gives you chills because you know what's going to happen. Now, this really isn't a murder, per se. I mean, it is, but my one big gripe is how the movie holds back on the violence. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't need unnecessary gore, but this? Is all we get for the murder scene? The whole scene leading up in the cornfield and the cutting between her happy family and the terrifying hole in the ground makes some real great tension. Yet apparently in the book, which I haven't read yet, goes into a lot more detail and has a rape scene in it that is completely cut out of the movie. I'm fine with there not being a rape scene, but I wish there was a little more of the actual murder itself. There's a lot of things that didn't make the cutting room floor from the book, so we'll get into that later. So, Susie is dead. Or is she? She appears in a heaven-like area called the In-Between, where she can enjoy the wonders of her new life while watching over everyone back on Earth. Let the doozing off ensue. Oh my gosh, we're still in purgatory. It's hard to critique something based off a book when you haven't read said book. yet some parts of a book are filler, which sounds like a bad thing but isn't. I mean, come on. There are numerous accounts in American Psycho, the book, where Patrick Bateman talks about how different styles of clothing for someone. Imagine that being in that movie. Meanwhile, the Salmon family is trying to help solve the murder while drifting away from each other. Or that is what Jackson is trying to do here. I thought all the scenes with Susie's mom and dad felt forced and clunky, and that is because a lot of the scenes were cut out. This movie was targeted for young adults like me. I was 14 when I saw it, so hell, they won. Yet the book isn't a young adult novel in the slightest. Susie and her lover Ray get intimate. Why does Jack randomly get beat up in a cornfield? Because that was supposed to be a heart attack instead. But this isn't over the top whatsoever. Abigail, Susie's mom, has an affair with the detective while he's investigating the case, which was also cut out of the film. They filmed the affair scenes but ended up on the cutting room floor so they could lean more towards a young adult PG-13 feel. So her randomly leaving felt super forced. Now you can sleep at night because I told you what she was actually really doing. Alright, let's talk about the elephant in the room, Mark Wahlberg's performance.
What? No.
I love the actor. Pain and Gain, Boogie Nights, Planet of the Apes. That's my guilty pleasure, so calm down. The other guys, and the fighter. The man is a good actor. He just wasn't meant for this role. Well, to his benefit, he was literally casted the first day they started shooting. Ryan Gosling was attached to the film, but at the time he was in his mid-20s, while his character was in his 30s. He felt like he wouldn't be able to give the performance Jackson wanted, so he backed out last minute. There's your reason. The man who steals the show is Stanley Tucci as the killer. Fun fact, he received an Oscar nomination for this role.
Stanley Tucci in The Lovely Bones.
But it seemed like he really didn't enjoy this movie. I understand though. It's hard to take on such an evil character, and after looking into interviews and behind the scenes, Tuick seems like a really nice guy, and I'm surprised he took the role. Though he stated that if Jackson would have kept the rape scene in the movie, he wouldn't have taken the role. I can respect that. Tuick devours the screen every second he's in it. He plays his character so well you couldn't even tell it was him. The scenes in Purgatory are pretty and has fun, clever transitions when Susie is walking around, but the film seems to get lost during these sequences and drags the movie on to the point where it goes back to Earth and I forgot what those characters were doing. Also, 14-year-old me wanted to puke during this scene.
Kiss me.
So, did he kiss her thinking it was Susie and then they passed out, or what the hell just happened here? There are some great scenes in this movie though. The scene where Susie's sister, Lindsay, breaks into George's house. That scene is intense as hell. The suspense and tension in this scene is great, and I wish there was more of that in this movie. Eventually, in Purgatory, we discover that Susie's killer has been going from state to state killing girls, and they're all been trapped in here as well. This element of the story was good because it adds more hatred towards George that I feel like we don't really get throughout the entire film. Another scene I really liked is when Susie's dad helps George build that murder hut thing. The movie and the book take a risk to have faith take over. No one stops the safe at the last second before it plummets into the sinking hole, and George trips over a log, falling to his death. It's satisfying, but in the way I would have loved to see justice been served, because Susie's case went cold. Overall, the more I talk about the movie, the more I don't hate it, the more I just realize there could have been more. Jackson's direction seems off. He was fighting for the rights for this movie for over 6 years, so I felt like when he got the rights, he might have altered but who knows if this movie would have been more successful rated R, kind of like Gone Girl. I wonder if it would have worked better as a miniseries on HBO or something like that, so there could have been more time to flesh out the characters and go for that R rating. When I say that this is my least favorite Peter Jackson movie, take that with a grain of salt. Peter Jackson doesn't make bad movies. I'll get to them next. It's just sometimes he misses the mark. He has a huge vision, and sometimes bigger isn't better. I think this movie could have been made with a smaller budget. It seems like most of the budget went towards the purgatory scenes, which do look incredible, but maybe there could have been less of those and more on the earth. Directors and film crews have to get a lot more creative with a limited budget, and maybe this movie needed that creativity. In the end, we got an amazing performance out of it, and that's good enough for me. I mean, it's like Hollywood's not going to throw a lot more money at him after this failure, right? Like always, guys, hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. I'll see you in the next video. Back in Middle Earth.